Welcome to Light Up Ishwa podcast. This is part 2 with Rabbi Neal Gold on the topic of fasting from a Jewish perspective. Hope you have already watched part 1. If you haven't, please go and watch or listen to part 1 and then you can listen to or watch part 2. That will give you the full perspective of Rabbi Neal Gold, what he's talking about and what is our discussion. Please remember to visit Light Up Ishwa website and check out what I am offering for you this year. If you like this topic and are benefiting from it, please do let me know. And you are welcome to leave a comment below this podcast or wherever you are watching or listening. I would really appreciate if you can leave a constructive review as well. Thank you and enjoy the conversation. Do you do this fasting? Do you?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Maybe I should. Because
Yeah.
read those articles that
Yeah.
you're talking about too, and I know that there is a great benefit
Yes.
to it. And I think that for Jews, there's an openness to secular or kind of non-denominational practices like that are good for you. There's an openness to adopting them. The obvious example that's coming to my mind is yoga.
Yeah.
Yoga is such a physically,
Universe,
spiritually healthy thing, and yoga studios all over America are full of Jewish people.
Exactly. So I inculcated
Always
that
with
practice.
that asterisk that it's good for most people, but not for everybody.
Yes.
And I'm thinking of stories like, because sometimes there's a lot of social pressure to fast, even for people who aren't supposed to. And there's stories in our literature about like great spiritual leaders at times of like mass epidemics going through the community who on Yom Kippur would stand up in front of the community and take out a loaf of bread and say the blessing over the bread and eat it in front of everybody. As a saying to the community, this year it's too dangerous. Our fast is going to be entirely spiritual and not physical. In other words, you must eat this year.
Of course.
So there is no Jewish benefit to harming yourself, endangering yourself, or putting yourself in a life-threatening place.
Do you want to mention any minor ones that people, do you encourage that? Or do you observe yourself also?
Sure.
Yeah.
There's 4 of them spread throughout the calendar.
Okay.
They are not as widely known, and, less observant Jews, some of them don't even know that they exist. They're usually connected with a day of calamity in the Jewish calendar, a day that was historically painful for Jews, whether it had to do with the destruction of Jerusalem in ancient times and the exile from that city, or there's a famous one that's connected with the story of Esther and the story of Purim, when there was an attempted genocide on the Jewish people. And we fast in historical memory of those painful times. I think some liberal people have kind of lost track of the minor fasts, not just because they've forgotten about them, but because they've said, if you're looking at the Jewish calendar for days of sorrow and suffering, every day of the Jewish calendar historically has had great suffering. And those days have those specific 4 days have sort of lost their historical meaning. So more traditional Jews observe those minor fasts.
Okay.
And others less so.
Okay, good. Thank you. Anything else before we go to the last segment? Hopefully one day publish this research soon. That doesn't matter if I'm talking to a rabbi or anybody, what are their, replies, or what do they think about those things? But anything else before we go to that? Anything you would like to share?
That's marvelous, Shwan. I really admire what you're doing. I think this is so great. There is one other thing I'd like to share.
Thank you so much.
And that is a text. I brought out my Hebrew Bible.
Oh, nice.
I think the most important text about fasting comes from the prophet Isaiah, and I would want to read a passage of it.
Sure.
I will also say, this is a scriptural reading that is read on Yom Kippur in the morning. So the rabbis from some 2,000 years ago who set these things determined that this passage said something fundamental about what fasting was all about. So this is from the prophet Isaiah. The text itself was written some 2,600 years ago. The prophet says, declare to my people their transgression, to the house of Jacob their sin. To be sure they seek me daily, eager to learn my ways, as if they were a nation that does what is right, that has not abandoned the laws of its God. Why, when we fasted, did you not see? When we starved our bodies, did you pay no heed? And here comes the answer. Because on your fast day you see to your business, and you oppress all your laborers, because you fast in strife and contention, and you strike out with a wicked fist. Your fasting today is not such as to make your voice heard on high. Is that the fast I desire, a day for people to starve their bodies? Do you call that a fast, a day when God is favorable? This is the fast I desire, to unlock the fetters of wickedness, to untie the cords of every yoke, to let the oppressed go free, to break off every yoke, to share your bread with the hungry, to take the desperate poor into your home, when you see the naked to clothe him, and not to ignore your own kin. So the prophet Isaiah sees, he's not opposed to fasting. He's opposed to hypocrisy.
Yes.
And
that's what we
get this idea of fasting and empathy. When you fast, you're supposed to say, what's the deeper lesson that I learned from this? And one is to be more passionately committed to making the world a more peaceful, a more gentle, more compassionate, a more just sort of place. There's a direct lesson between fasting today and being more committed to social justice tomorrow.
Excellent.
And it comes straight from chapter 58 of the
I
prophet.
was going to ask you the reference. I will. Is it possible to send this passage to me?
It sure is.
Okay, because I would like to maybe put this paragraph in my description. I can fast whole year, but what's the goal? What's the point? What does our Creator really want us to do?
I imagine the prophet grabbing people by the shoulders and shaking them and saying, don't you understand what this is all about?
Yes.
That this is about the deeper transformative aspect of what ritual really means. It's supposed to change you.
Yes. And it should show... Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
It's supposed to change you, and it's supposed to make you more human.
So, Rabbi, what is wealth in your experience?
Wealth?
Yes.
I think wealth is being satisfied. That we know of people who are rather materially poor, but are happy and satisfied with their lives. And we know people who have excessive money, power, property, and are never satisfied.
And you must have seen people like that in your life, have you? Yes?
I would say. I mean, look, where I live in suburban Massachusetts is very close to some of the wealthiest zip codes in the entire country, in the entire world. And yet there's so much dysfunction and sadness and pain and dissatisfaction. So I would say the first, what it means to be wealthy is it means to be satisfied. There's a line in the Torah that becomes part of the Jewish liturgy after you eat. And you say, v'achalta, v'savata, uve'erachta, which means we have eaten, we have satisfied ourselves, and we're blessing God. And I think the first and the third words are easy. It's easy to eat. It's easy to bless and have words come off of our lips. But to say, I'm satisfied, that's harder.
True.
And something to do with that has something to do with what it means to be wealthy, I think.
Very nice. Love the answer. Excellent. Thank you. The point is here, like, if you mention that, and like, how can we be satisfied if there is anything that we can do that we are missing, something in your experience?
I think there's something uniquely American about the dysfunction of wanting to acquire more, of always wanting to acquire more, of not being satisfied with your house, not being satisfied with your job, not being satisfied with your partner, things like that. And it's not healthy,
Exactly.
to be able to say, I'm surrounded by blessings, and I'm satisfied and I'm grateful. I think cultivating a a stance of gratitude is a primary religious value in every faith tradition that I know of. And I would say two things about that from a Jewish point of view. One is there's a tradition of saying blessings of in Judaism when you encounter something that is pleasurable or is a gift, you say a brief word of blessing, of gratitude to the source that it came from. So whether that's food or whether there's a whole Jewish tradition of saying blessings for seeing beautiful things in the world. If you see a tree in bloom, there's a blessing to say for that. If you see the ocean or the mountains, there's a blessing to say for it. Very brief, just an acknowledgement of beauty and gratitude in and the divine source of these things in the world. The other thing I would say I've already said several times in this podcast, and that is there's a direct connection between gratitude and generosity. That a truly grateful person wants to share that with other people. Says, I want, because I'm blessed to have these things, I want other people to be blessed with those things as well. There's a line from one of the great Hasidic masters, Reb Nachman of Wroclaw, who a Polish rabbi, a Ukrainian rabbi from the early 1800s, who said, we're supposed to be concerned with our own spiritual well-being and our neighbor's physical well-being. Most of us get that exactly backwards, and that's the cause of all of our problems.
Wow.
Our spiritual well-being and our neighbor's physical well-being, that's what we're supposed to be concerned with.
I'm amazed with the overlaps that we have in Islam and what you are saying. Yeah. Excellent.
I'm amazed too, but not surprised.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Excellent, because you connected the gratitude and wealth, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm sure you have a lot to say about value of time. What is the value of time for you, Rabbi?
Don't waste it. It's a gift. Every day is a gift, and time is precious.
True.
I'm not sure what more to say.
No. It is. But yeah, this is what it is. I'm sure you use your time very great, meticulously or very mindfully. Are you?
That's the goal. But you're a very generous interviewer to ascribe those things to me. That's the goal that we all reach for and constantly fall short.
Yes. Thank you for being here. I can't thank enough, because I know that how busy you are and you have so many responsibilities and hats that you wear. And I should say kippas you wear. Kippa? Are you conscious about the environment from the rabbinic point of view, about our climate and our environment?
Constantly and every day.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's probably the preeminent crisis of this generation, and something that affects all of us, although, like most things in the world, it affects impoverished people and poor people and people on the fringe even more. But it does affect all of us. And I think there's a rich Jewish tradition of saying that this world in which we walk is God's creation. It's the only world that we get. And Genesis chapter 2, going back to the very beginning, makes very clear that the task of human beings is, in regard to the natural world, the phrase in Hebrew is la'avda u'leshomra, which is challenging to translate. Most translations of the Bible say it's our task to till and to tend, which is nice. The Hebrew is even richer. It's to protect, to work it, and to serve it. I find our Christian brothers and sisters are more comfortable with using the language of stewardship, but I think that's a very Jewish concept, even though our Christian friends say it better. I think it's a very Jewish idea that human beings are given stewardship for this world and responsibility for it.
Yep.
And I think about these things every day.
Yep. Yep.
And it informs a lot of my life, especially my politics.
Yeah.
Because I only want leaders who share this awareness that we're responsible for the world and we're in crisis right now.
What is the purpose of your life?
That's a question.
Yes. Because everybody has a different purpose, right? I know that you are a rabbi. I mean, was that purposefully or whatever you want to share? Yeah.
Well, broadly speaking, I think our purpose, yours, mine, and everybody else, is to bring more love into the world. That sounds a little cliched, but like a lot of cliches, it's true though, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think to increase the amount of love in the world is our primary responsibility. For me personally, I'm a work in progress, just like you are, just like all your listeners are. We're all works in progress here. But I've found that my passion is teaching, especially teaching Jewish spiritual wisdom to whoever wants to hear it from me. And that gives me a lot of pleasure as well. So working on that.
Could you define a little bit about love? Like, how do you say, like, we need more love for each other? Do you mean care? Do you mean compassion?
Oh, no, it's a lot bigger than that. In Jewish tradition, love is more than just an emotion. It's certainly seated in emotion, but if you think about people who say that they love you, if that love isn't followed up by action, by their behavior towards you, you might say to yourself, maybe they never loved me in the first place. So in the Torah, love is always predicated on acting on that love. On loving God means doing what God expects of us. Loving the stranger means standing up for the rights of the stranger and insisting that the stranger is treated with justice and with kindness and fairness. Loving your neighbor, means looking out for your neighbor's well-being and acting on that care and compassion. Easier said than done, I suppose.
Yeah, true. But we all are, as you said, we need to strive for it at least. True.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Any message of hope before we go today? What can you say?
I think about this a lot. I love this question because hope is a primary value in Jewish life. I was on an interfaith panel with our friend Dr. Lazuni just a couple months ago, and it was all about hope. So I think a lot about this. Hope in Jewish thought and others is rooted in the idea and vision of a future that's better than the present, and then working towards to make that future a reality. Hope is also not supposed to be a panacea or wishful thinking, that the history that I carry with me is full of a lot of pain and suffering. And hope is kind of not allowed to whitewash that or ignore that. I guess I'd quote again Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav, who I alluded to a couple minutes ago. He said a famous thing about hope that's become a popular Jewish song today. He said, Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tsar ma'od, va'yikar lo lefached klal. The entire world on which we walk is a very narrow and perilous bridge. But the essential thing as you walk that bridge is not to be afraid.
Very nice. Wow.
That's helpful to me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And my last question is, Rabbi, what lights you up?
Lots of things. The world in which we live is a beautiful place. Okay. And there's a lot of light to be found in
Thank you.
But today I'm thinking about conversations like this. Conversations like that, that's not a cheap compliment to you, Schwab. But I do find light. I'm an extrovert, so I find light in good people coming together and making the world brighter. True. That's what I found.
True.
So in like-minded people of a good faith, no matter how many surface differences appear on the, on one level, people who come together acting on good faith in order, determined to make this world a more whole and more loving and more peaceful place, that's where I find light. And you're doing that on this podcast, Shwa, and I really admire it a lot.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Really appreciate that. So yeah, while I have you on this, I will take a couple of minutes from you. And how was your experience today? And I'm so happy that you were able to, take out time.
This is wonderful. I hope you'll invite me back.
Oh, that's wonderful. Why not?
Because it's really fun reconnecting with you, and this is just fabulous.
Excellent.
So
excellent. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
You too, and wonderful to see you. I hope
same here. And I hope we can, collaborate, as we were thinking on some kind of a panel discussion or some event that gives people. We have to think some creative ways to motivate people, and so they enjoy it.
I like when people study together. Like the first connection with Dr. Lazuni.
Yes.
Was we did a program. Well, you remember you were there. It was about texts that we have in common.
Yes.
But the very different lens of tradition through which we understand them. Because I think kind of what's exciting is, we both share this story about the one that comes to mind is about Abraham or Ibrahim sacrificing his son. But what that story means to Jews and what that story means to Muslims is so different, and that's fun to me. So I want to do more stuff like that.
Yeah, right.
I definitely will. Thanks.
Thank you.
Wonderful to see you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.